2, main house, now! I found a secondary route through the basement. Open fire! Go on, Casey, go out!
Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a high-stakes espionage thriller filled with secrets, betrayal, and explosive action. This is the full story recap of Classified, a 2024 film that follows a CIA officer who unravels a deadly mystery hidden in plain sight. So grab your seat, because this mission is about to take a dangerous turn. The movie follows the story of a CIA officer named Evan, who unknowingly stumbles into trouble after decoding mysterious classified ads in a newspaper. What began as a curious investigation soon spiraled into a dangerous mission. To see where it all leads, let's dive into the recap of Classified, a thriller released in 2024. The story opens with Evan seated on a plane, flipping through some sketches. He's en route to Malta, heading to the local CIA quarters to meet with another officer. During the meeting, he's handed a book to study. Evan, a man who often expresses his thoughts through sketches, begins to mentally piece things together. After arriving and checking out from the airport, he drives into the city, grabs a local newspaper, and immediately begins scanning the classified ads, initiating his research. His investigation leads him to an office where he inquires about a briefcase. Once he receives it, Evan checks into a hotel, sets up his room, secures his sensitive documents in the locker, and heads out again, this time on a boat toward the seaport. Evan climbs up to a high vantage point and observes someone through binoculars. Meanwhile, we are introduced to a family at the hotel, celebrating a birthday. Evan is also present at the venue, quietly watching them. Seeing the family triggers memories of his loved ones, which leads him to visit a cemetery later. Since arriving in the city, a young woman named Musil has been tailing Evan. Aware that he's being watched, Evan slips a card to a waiter while keeping his eyes on her, then quietly leaves the hotel. Later that night, he sets out again on the boat. Upon reaching the port, Evan swiftly eliminates several security guards standing in his way. Evan climbed to a higher vantage point, carefully setting up his pistol and taking aim. When a few security personnel noticed him, he swiftly eliminated them and descended from his position. Now inside a major office at the port, Evan pushed forward, taking down anyone who stood in his way. During the intense confrontation, he sustained injuries. Later, while taking a shower, he tended to his wounds, applying medication to avoid complications. Eventually, he returned to his room. Soon after, Evan arrived in a new city via helicopter, and a car dropped him off at his next destination. He checked into another hotel, and once again, the first thing he did was scan the newspaper and jot down notes in his diary. After booking a room, he stored some important items in the hotel locker and headed to the pool to relax with a swim. But when he returned to his room, something felt off. Suspicious, he immediately checked the wardrobe and discovered that several of his belongings were missing. Then, out of the shadows, the same mysterious woman who had been tailing him for days finally emerged, holding him at gunpoint. She had been tracking his every move. The woman revealed her name, Casey, and told Evan that she knew exactly who he was and why he had come. Demanding that he hand over all his files and intelligence, she claimed to know about the case he was investigating. But Evan, keeping his composure, tricked her, disarmed her, and tied her up. As she struggled, Casey told him, "You are a CIA officer. Your job is to kill people, but don't you ever stop to think before pulling the trigger?" Her tone shifted to personal pain, as she began to mention her mother, Manakala. Casey confessed that her mother, Manakala, had died. Evan gagged her with a cloth and walked out of the room. Once outside, he began researching Casey on his computer to uncover more about her background. That evening, he met with a man named Kevin for dinner. Their conversation also circled back to Manakala. After dinner, Evan returned to his hotel room, where Casey was still lying exactly where he had left her, unconscious and bound. He looked at her with skepticism and asked, "Why are you putting on this drama?" He untied her and dragged her to the bathroom, tossing a pillow toward her and saying, "You'll be spending the night here." Then, he sat outside, organizing papers, while his mind kept drifting back to thoughts of Manakala. The next day, Evan brought Casey along with him. As soon as they stepped outside, He tossed her briefcase and firmly told her, "If you want to work with me, the first rule is this: you don't keep anything with you unless I approve it." They then boarded a boat heading toward Micah. As they traveled across the water, they shared small talk until they arrived at a hotel located in the middle of the ocean. While they were there, a call came through on a public phone. Evan picked it up, and a threatening voice on the other end warned him to complete his mission quickly, or else he would become the mission. Meanwhile, some men were dispatched to track Evan down. Casey and Evan then made their way to an old, abandoned house. Inside, they began checking for clues, and Evan discovered several hidden gadgets inside a drawer. But the men sent to follow Evan had arrived by then. A confrontation broke out. The assailants carried high-tech gadgets that allowed them to detect and track Evan's presence through specialized sensors. A violent fight ensued. Despite their efforts, they failed to catch him. Evan managed to escape with Casey by sneaking her into someone else's car and fleeing the scene. Later, Evan realized that the friend he had dinner with, Kevin, had deceived him, feeding him false information and betraying his trust. Even worse, the tracking system those men were using failed, leaving them unable to locate Evan again. The reason Evan was still hard to catch was simple: none of them truly understood who he was. He wasn't just an agent, he was far more resourceful than they imagined. As night passed, Evan began preparing explosives to protect himself. The next morning, while stepping out to collect a newspaper, the men following him spotted him, and a chase broke out. This time, the action escalated into a high-speed pursuit through uneven and hilly terrain. During the intense car chase, Evan's vehicle tumbled off an elevated road. Just in time, he leapt out, narrowly escaping death. The explosive device he had placed inside the car detonated on impact. Though many assumed he was dead, the enemy soon realized Evan had survived. He barely made it back to his hideout and urgently instructed someone to seal all the windows and doors. But the opposing team had already tracked him down and arrived at the house. Gunfire erupted from both sides. When Evan ran out of bullets, he was left with no other choice. He tossed one of his handmade bombs outside, causing a powerful explosion that killed many of his attackers. Evan then escaped the scene with Casey. On the road, he stopped the car and confronted her. "Tell me the truth. Who are you? Who sent you after me? Why don't you just leave me alone?" In response, Casey showed him a unique birthmark, one that matched the mark on Evan's own body. That's when the truth struck him. Casey was his and Manicala's daughter. Casey began to share everything her mother had told her. As the pieces came together, Evan realized that many of their traits and behaviors, hers and Manicala's, were unmistakably familial. The next day, father and daughter visited a library, where Evan recounted the various classified cases he had solved over the years. They printed out documents and headed straight to the office of a man named Tony. Tony had seized control of an office that Evan had painstakingly built for himself. Outraged, Casey accused him of betrayal. Tony dismissed her anger and calmly said they needed to sit down and talk. Casey refused, but Evan urged her to let him hear Tony out. Tony gave them coordinates to a specific location and advised them to go there by boat. According to him, someone important, an old friend of Evan's, was waiting there. When Evan arrived, his anger boiled over. Without hesitation, he punched his friend and shouted, "I've been running on your instructions for so long without even realizing." Evan was now focused on finding information about Conti. His friend invited him inside, but the place was heavily fortified. Armed guards stood throughout the compound to protect him. Suddenly, several black vehicles pulled up outside. Dozens of armed men stepped out. They looked like members of a special ops force. Without warning, they stormed the building and began taking out the guards one by one. Evan quickly instructed one of his allies to keep an eye on the fan monitor while he prepared his weapon. His ally was seated in front of the surveillance screen, watching the situation unfold in real time through the building's security cameras. The armed force had breached the premises, and bullets were flying in every direction. Casey joined the fight, holding her ground against the attackers. One of the operatives from the strike team managed to locate Evan's position and began updating his team in real time. Seeing them closing in, Evan fired at the electrical wires, plunging the entire facility into darkness. Taking advantage of the confusion, the force's leader ordered an immediate change of plan and guided his team through an alternate route using the tracking system. A brutal gunfight erupted as both sides clashed again. In the chaos, Evan's friend was critically wounded, on the brink of death. Realizing the situation was dire, Evan fled the scene with his daughter, Casey. Meanwhile, Agent Ney had also arrived at the location. Evan asked Casey to leave while he stayed behind to handle the attackers himself. After a fierce confrontation, he eventually made his way out of the building too. But their enemies weren't done yet. The chase continued. Just then, Casey hurled an explosive toward the force's leader, ending the threat once and for all. With police sirens now echoing in the distance, Evan and Casey escaped together, finally free. Though the enemies had been defeated, one threat remained: Tony. Determined to end it once and for all, Evan tracked him down at his residence and executed him. As the story draws to a close, Evan promises to protect his daughter forever, honoring the legacy of Manicala. And that's where Classified ends. And that's how Classified wraps up, with a storm of action, a twist of family, and a final act of revenge. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling movie breakdowns just like this. And hey, tap the bell icon so you never miss a mission. Until next time, stay sharp and stay curious.